Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Breaking news out of Washington yesterday. President Donald Trump removed his own Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, a woman who just months ago was being praised by Republicans for delivering the most secure border in modern American history. We have the details for you. Elisabeth Hasselbeck, a guest host for The View this week, confronted co-host Sunny Hostin over former President Barack Obama launching airstrikes against Libya in 2011, as the liberal co-host has repeatedly called President Donald Trump's actions in Iran illegal. We have that story for you, too. And Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette joins us to talk about a House bill that will give South Carolinians the tax breaks in the president's One Big Beautiful Bill and her response to the war in Iran. It's a busy day, so let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Something big just happened in Washington, and almost nobody saw it coming. Did you see it coming? President Donald Trump just removed his own Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, a woman who just months ago was being praised by Republicans for delivering the most secure border in modern American history. But here's where the story gets interesting. She wasn't fired. She was moved, according to the story. And the man Trump tapped to replace her, a former undefeated fighter who is now a U.S. Senator. So let's unpack what really happened, why Kristi Noem is leaving Homeland Security, and why the next phase of Trump's security strategy may be bigger than the border. It was a surprise announcement. Here's what we know. Yesterday, President Trump posted on Truth Social announcing that Kristi Noem would be stepping down as Secretary of Homeland Security. Now remember, Noem has been one of the most visible members of Trump's cabinet during his second term, maybe too visible. One of the issues is an ad budget of over $200 million that she spent promoting DHS with herself on horseback and featured very prominently.
Why do I love these wide open spaces? They remind me of why our forefathers came here, not just for its beauty, but for the freedom only America provides. I'm Kristi Noem. From the cowboys who tamed the West, to the titans who built our cities, to the dreamers who chased the impossible, America has always rewarded vision and grit. Our greatness calls people to us for a chance to prosper, to live how they choose, to become part of something special. Anyone who searches for freedom can always find a home here, but that freedom's a precious thing, and we defend it vigorously. You cross the border illegally, we'll find you. Break our laws, we'll punish you. Harm American citizens, there will be consequences. But if you come here the right way, your American dream can be as big as these endless skies. From President Trump and me, welcome home.
Ms. Noem took over the department at a time when the immigration system was in complete turmoil after the Joe Biden years. And under her leadership, the administration says they delivered what they describe as the most secure border in American history, and it's hard to argue with that. According to the figures released by the department, illegal crossings have dropped dramatically to almost zero. More than 500,000 pounds of illegal drugs have been intercepted, roughly 670,000 illegal immigrants removed, and millions more reportedly self-deporting. Supporters say it's the largest immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. which is why the announcement caught Washington by surprise. Because when the president moves someone out of a job like Homeland Security, the first question people ask is simply, what went wrong? During a Senate hearing, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy pressed Homeland Security Secretary Noem about a $220 million taxpayer-funded advertising campaign. Kennedy asked a very simple question. Who approved it?
How do you square that concern for waste, which I share, with the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently, okay? And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Now, Ms. Noem responded that President Trump had authorized the spending, but here's where the story takes a turn. Shortly after that exchange, the White House clarified that the president did not approve the ad campaign. And just days later, Trump announced Noem would be leaving her position as Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, we're told she wasn't fired. This is a key detail. Trump didn't push Noem out completely. Instead, he announced she'll be taking on a new role called Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas. Ever heard of it? I haven't either, because it doesn't exist right now. It's about to be created. This is a new security initiative focused on the Western Hemisphere translation. Instead of focusing only on the U.S. border, we're told, this group will be focusing on other parts of the Western Hemisphere. The administration appears to be expanding the fight southward, targeting cartels and criminal networks across the Americas, South Americas. In her first statement after the announcement, Noem made it clear what the mission will be. She said she's looking forward to working with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to dismantle drug cartels responsible for flooding the United States with narcotics. She also emphasized that the Western Hemisphere is critical to American security. Can't argue with that either. And if you step back for a moment, you can see the broader strategy emerging. The administration spent the first year securing the border. Now they're preparing to go after the networks behind the crisis. Now, enter Markwayne Mullin. Let's talk about the man who will replace her. President Trump says he plans to nominate Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma to lead the Department of Homeland Security. If confirmed, the Senate, by the Senate, Mullin will oversee one of the largest and most powerful federal agencies in the country. And his background is a little unusual. Before politics, Mullin was a businessman, a plumbing company owner, and yes, an undefeated professional MMA fighter. President Trump praised him as a strong advocate for border security and law enforcement. He also noted that Mr. Mullin is the only Native American currently serving in the U.S. Senate, making him one of the most prominent tribal representatives in modern American politics. But here's the funny part. Even Senator Mullin himself didn't seem to expect the job. Reporters caught up with him on Capitol Hill shortly after the announcement, and when they asked him if he was headed to the White House to meet with the president, his response was kind of honest. He said, I think I need to talk to my wife first. That may be one of the most relatable political quotes that you'll hear all week. Now, while the administration is framing this as a strategic shift, there were some controversies brewing behind the scenes. What were they? Well, Kristi Noem, of course, had been under intense questioning under the congressional hearings that I shared with you earlier. Republican Senator John Kennedy, along with other Republican senators, grilled her over her taxpayer-funded advertisement contract tied to a firm connected with people in her political circle. Reports later surfaced suggesting that the White House was unhappy with how that issue was handled during testimony. According to sources familiar with the situation, President Trump was particularly frustrated when Ms. Noem suggested that he had approved the advertisement. The White House later clarified that. Again, Trump saying he did not approve the ad, and that moment apparently added tension behind the scenes. And there's There were other distractions as well. During the hearing, Democrat lawmakers tried to question Noem about rumors involving Trump advisor Corey Lewandowski. By the way, they're both married. Noem pushed back. She called the accusations tabloid garbage and accused Democrats of trying to smear conservative women. It was one of the more fiery exchanges in the hearing. But in Washington, moments like that can sometimes shift political momentum. Despite the controversy, many Republicans were quick to defend Ms. Noem. One of the most outspoken supporters was Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins. He told her directly during the hearing that she had inherited a disaster and had turned it around. He pointed to the 97% decrease in illegal crossings as proof of leadership. And even critics of the administration's immigration policies have acknowledged something has clearly changed at the border. We all know that. We recognize that. Whether you support the strategy or oppose it, the numbers show a dramatic shift from just a few years ago. Now, what does all this mean? There are two possibilities. The first is simple Washington politics. Cabinet positions change. That's a given. Presidents reshuffle their teams. Sometimes controversy accelerates those decisions. But the second possibility is more strategic. The administration may believe that the border crisis phase is largely under control, and the next phase of the fight is going after the cartels and trafficking networks that operate across Latin America. That's where Ms. Noem's new role could be very important. If this new initiative, the Shield of the Americas, expands cooperation with governments throughout the Western Hemisphere, it could shift U.S. policy from defensive border enforcement to offensive cartel disruption. That would be a major change in strategy, and it would explain why the administration might want someone focused entirely on that mission. We'll just have to see. Kristi Noem is leaving her post as Homeland Security Secretary, but she's not leaving the administration. Instead, she's moving into a new role targeting drug cartels and security threats across America and remaining part of the Trump administration. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get your 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. You know, sometimes the biggest political debates in America don't necessarily happen on the floor of the Senate or the House or even in D.C. itself. They happen on daytime television. And this week, that's exactly what we saw. There was a moment on The View that really captured a debate that's been simmering in Washington for decades. And the question is of presidential war powers and whether the standard changes depending on who's sitting in the Oval Office. Now, we know the answer to that. We know that the Democrats have different standards for a Republican president than they do when one of their own's in the Oval Office. But during Thursday's show, guest host Elisabeth Hasselbeck challenged one of the program's regular co-hosts, Sunny Hostin, over criticism she's been making about President Trump's recent military strikes against Iran. Now, I'm sure you don't watch The View, so just take my word for it. Ms. Hostin has been very critical of President Trump, claiming that what he is doing is unconstitutional. In fact, I think she's even called it illegal. Hostin has argued repeatedly that the strikes are unconstitutional, saying the president should have gone through Congress before launching them. Now, she views herself as a constitutional scholar, but keep in mind she's on The View, so can't be that smart. Now, that argument's been made by several Democrats in Washington as well, so she's not on her own there. They say that Congress has the constitutional authority to declare war, and therefore military action of this scale should be debated and approved by lawmakers. But Hasselbeck raised a question that a lot of people watching probably thought about themselves. She pointed back to 2011, when President Barack Obama ordered airstrikes against Libya. Now, you may remember that operation. It's called Operation Odyssey Dawn. The Obama administration said the strikes were necessary to prevent Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi from attacking civilians during the uprising that was happening there at the time. The administration relied on a legal opinion from the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel. That opinion argued that the president had the constitutional authority to use military force in Libya if it served the national interest, even without approval from Congress. So Hasselbeck asked Hostin directly, did she believe that it was illegal back then? Here's the exchange.
I want to ask you why you keep calling this like an undocumented attack, that you don't agree with the war,
an illegal, unconstitutional.
So did you believe it was illegal in April of 2011 when the Office of Legal Counsel memo stated from President Obama that the president has constitutional authority to direct the use of military force in Libya because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest prior congressional approval was not constitutionally required to use military force in these operations? Where were you then complaining?
I agreed. Well, I wasn't on this show then.
No, but personally, would you have stood against that?
I was at home complaining. No, I wasn't complaining because the Office of Legal Counsel was involved. And the Office of Legal Counsel...
This came after.
But the Office of Legal Counsel is the office in the Department of Justice, because I worked at the Department of Justice, that reviews these things and makes legal determinations. This president doesn't go through the Office of Legal Counsel. This president does not go to Congress. Congress has the power to to approve wars. This Congress has the power of the purse. This president is acting more like a king than anything else. He is the commander. He's the commander-in-chief, but he is not a king. And so I think that this should have gone through Congress. I think that the American embassies should have been notified so that American citizens in the Middle East would have been able to get to safety. I don't think that this was done appropriately. I maintain that this is illegal and unconstitutional.
Do you like the result? Do you like the result?
No, I don't.
So where were the complaints back in 2011? Because we have the same situation, identical. Hostin responded with a little humor you heard there, saying she was at home complaining at the time, noting she wasn't a host on the show at the time. But she went on to argue that there's an important difference between the two situations. According to Ms. Hostin, she believes the Trump administration did not go through the same kind of legal review process through the Office of Legal Counsel. She also argued that Congress should have been involved before the strikes took place. And she framed the issue in stark terms. She said the president is commander-in-chief, but not a king. They love to throw that term king around. They love to call Donald Trump King Trump. Now, whether you agree with the argument or not, I don't agree with it. It does bring us to the constitutional debate that really goes back to the founding of the country. The Constitution gives Congress the authority to declare war, but it also makes the president commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And over the years, that has created a gray area that presidents of both parties have used. Because here's the reality. Formal declarations of war are actually pretty rare in modern American history. The last time Congress officially declared war was during World War II. Since then, most military actions, and we can name the list, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, have happened under authorizations for force, or sometimes under the president's own authority as commander-in-chief. That's the system that has developed over time. And interestingly enough, during this exchange on The View, another co-host pointed out that Sarah Haynes jumped in and said something that you don't often hear discussed clearly in Washington. She noted that nearly every modern president since Ronald Reagan has ordered military strikes without going through Congress first. She's right. Reagan did it. George H.W. Bush did it. Bill Clinton did it. As mentioned, Barack Obama did it, and now Donald Trump has done it. So she argued that if people want to talk about the legality of presidential war powers, then the conversation shouldn't be limited to just one president. It really is about the broader system that has evolved over decades. Haynes also made another interesting point. She said Congress itself bears some responsibility for the situation because over the years, lawmakers have gradually allowed more and more of that decision-making authority to shift towards the executive branch. Think about it. Congress has the power of the purse. They control military funding. They can pass legislation limiting military action. They can invoke the War Powers Act. But historically, Congress has only been reluctant to assert that authority. And there's a political reason for that. If a military action succeeds, lawmakers can praise it. If it fails, they can criticize the president for making the decision. They don't want their hands tied up in this. In other words, the political incentives sometimes encourage Congress to stay on the sidelines and let the commander-in-chief make the decision. Now, during the discussion on The View, the conversation took another turn when Hasselbeck asked Hostin about the result of the strikes themselves, specifically the strike that eliminated Iran's supreme leader, Khomeini, a man who had ruled the Islamic Republic for decades, presided over a long period of confrontation with the United States and Israel. Hasselbeck asked Hostin a simple question: did she support the result? Hostin said no. And that answer reflects another reality about American politics today. Foreign policy decisions, especially military ones, are often viewed through a political lens depending on which party controls the White House. We all know that getting Khomeini and getting Iran under control will make the whole world safer. The ladies on The View are never going to admit that under President Donald Trump. Story out of the New York Post yesterday, kind of interesting. Just another layer in the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga. A boutique Manhattan condo building that drew celebrity buyers, including Chelsea Clinton, NASCAR champion Jeff Gordon, Jennifer Lopez, and a whole list of celebrities and well-known folks, had an unlikely early investor, convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Documents from the recently released Epstein files reveal that the deceased, disgraced financial advisor quietly backed the luxury conversion of 21 East 26th Street in Nomad, a historic property overlooking Madison Square Park, later marketed as the Whitman. The 5-story building was transformed into just 4 full-floor residences and a duplex penthouse, a design that helped lure a roster of high-profile buyers when sales launched back in 2013, according to The Real Deal. Now, behind the scenes, email show developer David Mitchell offered Mr. Epstein an unusually favorable entry into the project years earlier. The email, which is one of millions of emails that are in there, Mitchell said, "I think this is attractive because most of the risk of approvals and asbestos removal is behind. No guarantees, but should be good." Epstein ultimately committed roughly $920,000 through a stake in the project's sponsor entity and a smaller limited partner investment, a structure that gave him access to profits typically reserved for the developers themselves. Now, Epstein appeared to move quickly. He wrote in a message to Mitchell, "I'm closing today on your deal with no due diligence. I'm merely relying on your representations. Thanks and good luck." Emails show that Epstein even floated taking the building's penthouse instead of a profit payout. He wrote in one email that was reviewed by the New York Post, "I would like to do a similar Soho House type deal, take the penthouse instead of profit, but only if convenient." Mitchell responded that the arrangement would be difficult because the deal had already closed and other investors were involved. Financial projections circulating among investors at the time suggested the roughly $32 million project could generate more than $54 million in total sales, helped by a very roaring Manhattan luxury market recovering from the financial crisis at that time. The units quickly found buyers once sales began, according to records. Now, Jeff Gordon purchased the second floor residence for $10 million in 2013. He later sold the unit in 2023 for $13.5 million. Not a bad return. Chelsea Clinton snapped up another full-floor apartment in the building she purchased alongside her husband, Mark Mazvinsky, for $9.25 million in 2013 as well. Mark and Chelsea's apartment, which they still own and was once marketed as a luxury fortress, is expansive by any Manhattan standard. It's been described as one of the city's longest residencies, stretching the length of an entire block. It's roughly 5,000 square feet, includes 4 bedrooms, 5 baths, and a powder room, along with high ceilings that rise more than 12 feet. The crown jewel, though, was the duplex penthouse, the one that Epstein previously expressed an interest in, which is a huge residence, roughly 6,000 square feet of interior space, thousands of square feet on terraces. It eventually sold to Jennifer Lopez for nearly $20 million. She would go on to sell the unit for $23 million in 2024 after nearly 7 years on the market. Internal deal summaries show that Epstein's investment was projected to return more than $1.6 million, and almost 80% return, though the final outcome depended largely on the sale of the penthouse. 80% return. It's not bad, is it? Other documents from the Epstein files also show the building serving as a social venue before the condos hit the market. A 2012 invitation circulated by Jamie and David Mitchell promoted an election night party at the address the night Barack Obama won his second term in office. There's just a copy of an invitation. Nobody knows if the party was ever actually held. But it's interesting to see how Epstein really had these connections. He was involved in so much stuff. I wonder if the Clintons got some kind of favorable deal for Chelsea at the time. And were they concerned, I guess not, that Jeffrey Epstein had a part of this? By the way, while we're talking about Epstein, some additional files released. The U.S. Department of Justice released 3 FBI interviews that a woman gave to agents about her alleged abuse as a minor by Epstein. She had ties to South Carolina. She was part of the financial advisors circle during his stays on Hilton Head Island. Her account included an unverified but detailed allegation, and this is why it's getting some news, that Donald Trump, who she said pressed her to perform a sex act during an encounter in the mid-1980s. Now, the White House has adamantly denied the allegation, insisted the president has been exonerated in the Epstein matter. But we know that these types of files are going to, they're probably going to get legs. The newly released documents, they were marked confidential by the FBI, elaborate on an account that the woman began unveiling in her first interview with agents at her lawyer's office in July of 2019. This was reported by the Post and Courier. In 3 follow-up interviews, she told the FBI she was involved with Epstein over several years. She said he urged her to recruit other girls to come party at 2 residences he lived in while visiting the island. She told agents that Epstein and an associate threatened her repeatedly during her teenage years, and that Epstein and the associate extorted money from her mother to keep nude photos of her from being circulated. The woman told agents her mother stole money from a bank account held by her company to pay Epstein's demand. The crime landed the mother in prison and ruined her life, according to this young lady. She said her mother is now dead. The Post and Courier has been able to confirm the woman's mother did serve prison time around this period for embezzlement from the firm where she worked. Court documents, of course, make no mention of Jeffrey Epstein. The FBI records were made public by the Justice Department on March the 5th, yesterday, after their initial omission prompted a national controversy over concerns that the administration was trying to hide the documents from the public because they mentioned President Trump. A DOJ spokesperson pointed the newspaper to a social media post saying that the department reviewed allegations about the missing documents. The department found that 15 documents were incorrectly deemed duplicative, which would allow withholding them based on federal law. Those records, as well as 5 other documents initially marked as privileged by the Southern District of Florida, are now public, according to the DOJ statement. The department said it would allow members of Congress to review all files marked as duplicative because there may be more like this that they thought had been released in other ways. Now, the alleged victim told agents that she had as many as 20 sexual encounters with Epstein himself, all of which involved drug use, she said. He took her from Hilton Head to New York to New Jersey when she was a young teen, she said. At the time, Epstein was acquiring a fortune, of course, as a financial advisor, putting many client investments into real estate developments. How this man was able to do this and take advantage of these young girls is just simply amazing. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On our guest line today, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. I hope you are too.
I am wonderful. I will say that I just get tired when I just see all of these events that you're appearing at. I mean, I follow you on social media, of course, and you're just everywhere.
Well, I try to be everywhere. I think it's really important that the people of South Carolina have the ability to come to events that I'm at, shake my hand. I love asking people for their vote in person, and give them the ability to ask me questions. I want them to know that I want to be the governor for everyone. Big business, small business, rural areas, urban areas, like for everybody. And I learned so much, Joey, when I'm out and about and I'm sitting in rural South Carolina and I hear about things that are going on there and how, sometimes cities are trying to annex in, some of our farmers' land and what that does to them, and already a very tight market. When I learn about short-term rentals and what that means, and you'll have a small business owner that has rental properties, and they'll say, wow, if the city comes down and on us, like, my whole business is destroyed.
Yeah.
When you hear things from people's perspective, it makes you a better leader.
Yeah. Well, I want to get your thoughts on something here, because I'm a little confused, and with your background, your business background, I know you can help explain this to us. The South Carolina House appears to be moving pretty quickly a bill that would allow state filers to take advantage of the tax deductions in President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. So what can you tell us about that particular bill? And there's a lot of confusion because, we've heard, no tax on tips and all these various things that are part of One Big Beautiful Bill. But for some reason, I guess South Carolina filers at this point can't take advantage of that. Are you familiar with this bill, and can you kind of educate us on it?
Well, I can educate you on the problem. The bill keeps changing so much. Then you have a House version, a Senate version. It's going to have to go to committee, but it does need to come quickly because April 15th is coming quickly.
Yeah.
And what the Senate, I believe it's the Senate bill, is they don't want to conform to the federal side, which means that when you use your federal taxable income and you convert that over to the state, you're going to have to add back in some of those things if they don't allow it. So, I was up in Rock Hill on Friday, and I was out at Sun City in Hilton Head this week, and a lot of seniors who pay Social Security, they're very concerned because right now, with everything up in the air, their filers, whoever their accountants are telling them either file your taxes as you normally would, and then we may have to amend this later, or they're telling them to extend their state return until the General Assembly can. And that is probably why it's moving quickly. That's not cheap for anybody. Anytime you have to, you go back to your accountant. I mean, unfortunately, time is money. And you've heard me say that over the years. Business people realize that every time you go back to your accountant, whether it's going to H&R Block at the corner or your accountant in their office, they're going to charge you for that.
Yeah. Well, it's my understanding, just in people that I've talked with about this, is that this was just changed recently, that prior to last year, the state did conform to the federal, but changed this about a year or so ago that would theoretically take effect for this filing period. Now they're trying to hurry to reverse that. Is that the case?
There were some changes made the last time, a tax bill went through. There has been a lot of talk about, the state shouldn't have to conform to what the federal government does. some of those cuts do then lessen the state's general fund budget that comes in through tax dollars. So I think I read an article, Joe, and I don't know, it's like $270 million maybe gets lost in the shuffle if we conform 100% to the One Big Beautiful Bill. But what I'm saying is that, President Trump did that to help out middle-class America.
Yep.
He did that to help out our seniors who have already given so much during the years they've worked. He did that for the hardworking people. And, I think that's something we always have to focus on here, too, in South Carolina, is to always make sure that we're putting as much money back into people's homes, letting them spend it on their families, what's important to them, and not bring it all down to Columbia. And so, I've always been very proud of the president with the way he has really tried to focus on middle America.
Yeah. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette is our guest today. Since we talked last week, boy, a lot has happened. What are your thoughts on our involvement in the war in Iran?
If for as long as I can remember, Joey, Iran has not been a friend to the United States. They have chanted death to America, death to Israel, death to America at every turn. And so a world where Iran has the nuclear capabilities to get to us cannot exist. And President Trump knew that he was probably the only leader that had the courage to step up and make sure he was keeping America safe. And so that is exactly what I see is happening. I hope everybody like myself and my family are praying for our men and women who are over there fighting to keep this world safer. Terrorists like Iran and Hezbollah and they cannot have the ability to hurt innocent people. And you can see that. I mean, we are bombing launch sites. We are bombing weapons facilities. We are, that's what we're bombing.
Yeah.
And Iran and, Hezbollah and Libya, Lebanon, they're bombing residential sites. They're bombing hotels. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who have no value of life. They don't care about their citizens. I mean, look at what Iran did when their citizens tried to rise up.
Yep.
They just shot them in the streets. And so this is not what we believe in. I think President Trump has a plan, even though the Democrats keep running out saying, when has our president never had a plan?
Yep.
I just think it's amazing they came out of that briefing, again, one united message. They had this message designed before they ever went in to get briefed. They all came out saying the same thing, except for Senator Fetterman.
Yep.
He came out and basically said there is no scenario that Iran should have nuclear weapons capabilities.
Well,
full stop.
Yep.
And
that's the case. I mean, thank goodness that President Trump has taken this step, because maybe, just maybe, the world will be a lot safer for many, many generations because of this action, because he stepped up to once and for all take care of them.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. I think the president has always put Americans first, and he will continue to do that. I believe he's got a very targeted mission. He does not want this to be another endless war. He has said that from the time he took office the first time. These endless wars have to stop. But it is his job, whether it's the president, members of Congress, Senate, governor, lieutenant governor. We put our hand on a Bible. And I took that very seriously. Our president took that very seriously. Our governor took that very seriously, that we are here to protect our people, the people of this state and this nation. And that doesn't mean, skirting off to the side. That's why, I anxiously wait for all these other elected officials who allowed illegals to come in and kill our citizens, whether they were bringing in fentanyl or murdering them on the streets. They need to be held accountable because they did not uphold the laws of either, depending on what office you're taking, this state or this nation, they weren't upholding our laws. And in nowhere in what I put my hand on a Bible and recited said the laws which I wanted to enforce or which I thought were good. it's all the laws. And we've seen elected official after elected official skirt those things aside and not take a bold stand. And we need leaders that will take a bold stand.
That is for sure. That is for sure. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, it's always a pleasure. Be safe, and we'll talk again soon.
Joey, thank you so much. And hey, good news. The HALO Act passed the House yesterday. You know, that's something that I have been very passionate about. I've been talking about it and encouraging the General Assembly to get it passed. Very happy. There was some debate on it, but it passed the House yesterday. So I'm super excited about it.
That is good news as well. My buddy John McCravey had sent a note about that. So that is good news out of Columbia for sure. So have a good one.
Yeah, they're getting stuff done, everybody. Yep. Have a great weekend, Joey.
Okay. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.